when you don't feel good enough, you start to look for ways to make yourself feel better. And there's a lot of people out there that put out information out there. It's like, here's how cutting makes you better. So to me, 15 years ago, I would think if you were cutting, you probably would be more in line with some sort of personality disorder or something's going on from a systemic childhood exposure. Now it pretty much is like, hey, this works and this is why it works. You should do it. And that could be like a 3-second TikTok. And now we've got the highest rates. If you look at the CDC statistics, the highest rates started beginning after TikTok was released.
Of cutting.
Cutting. Oh, it's skyrocketed.
Let's spend a little time on this. So my understanding is there's a gender disparity with some of this behavior, right? Is cutting more prevalent with girls?
It used to be. It is still, but it used to be. The boys are catching up with the eating disorders, the self-harm, all of the things.
Really?
Absolutely.
What's the deal there? Like, why? Let's assume for a moment that you're completely correct and that this experience with social media and the feedback loops is what's driving it, which it's hard to, it does seem hard to argue that it's not because of the timing.
Yeah.
But why is cutting us feel good? I mean, honestly, like I have no idea what this is about.
Right.
Like, it seems horrible. Like I'm feeling real bad on myself. Let me cut. Like that feels crazy. Like why does that work?
So from a neurochemical response, let me get a little nerdy.
Yeah, please, nerd out.
So if you are anxious and you're feeling super anxious and you're uncomfortable and you can't catch your breath and you take a rubber band and snap yourself really, really hard, your body has to choose. Am I focusing on this anxiety or I'm focusing on my pain? And an endorphin is released in order to manage that pain. So you can't do both at the same time. So from a neurobiological standpoint, right? So it does work is the problem. And so when kids start to communicate that, a lot of times when they're having an anxiety attack or something's happening and they can't get themselves settled, one thing that helps them get settled
is cutting.
And
hurting.
And it's neurochemical. For them, a lot of them will say, I was so numb, I couldn't feel anything, and I was just doing this. A lot of it is a badge of honor. Like if I go to school and I have these, I get attention from that, so there's secondary gain in it. But the actual cutting itself, whether it's burning or cutting or scratching, like whatever
just
it is,
injuring,
there
self-harm.
is self-harm, yeah, and eating disorders are considered a type of self-harm. To me, that is really them trying to manage an emotional state that gives them a neurochemical response when they do it.
How should I, as a parent, think about, we have this sort of like a kind of phrase, like they just want to get attention. What does that mean? What does it mean? Is that part of what's happening, that there's a cry for help or wanting attention?
Well, this goes back to, this is the middle school years is where I first see most of it. I call it the dumpster fire years. You called it the Hunger Games, right?
Yeah. Middle school is the worst.
It is. And it's really, like, typically kids are really trying to find a space. And so when you think about whether or not you're in a space where you're trying to gain attention from 50 kids that might be in your class, or you're trying to gain space where we've got 8 billion people online and we're trying to put ourselves out there and we're getting told if you are a part of this. Like I remember when one of my patients came in and she's like, TikTok is lame, alt TikTok is where it's to be. And I was like, I don't know what alt TikTok is. Like, I don't know.
What is alt TikTok?
So it was
some
like
new fresh door to hell.
Yeah. Well, it was like where all the creatives went, and it was like LGBTQs and like all of these, so it was like but again, more labels, and they're creating these labels to create communities, in my opinion, that are smaller and more manageable for themselves, that they can identify with and be accepted back. And it's really about that piece of being accepted for this age group as we develop of like, who am I? And do I belong somewhere? And it's really hard to belong somewhere, particularly if you're like a smelly 14-year-old boy in middle school.
So let's get to the Saves America part. Okay. Which is, what the hell are we supposed to do about this? So
burn it all. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
So what do we do? What do we do as parents? What are your recommendations?
So the minute you access the internet and give a child access to a screen that can do such is the minute you're going to get them into these areas that we talked about, the porn, the negative talk, the hate speech, all of that stuff. So are you at a place where you think your child is ready for that or not ready for that? Are they able to understand that? I always say to parents, it's like, if you can wait past 8th grade, after the middle school dumpster fire years, Hunger Game years, get them through that as stewards of their own family, of like understanding like who they are as people, to me is best. Like if they have social media and access on their own and being like, you know, there's a bunch of nefarious stuff out there. I say up until that age, they don't really have the critical thinking skills in order to not just get pulled into it. Into, you know, it's like watching a train wreck in front of you. You can't look away. So if you can keep them off of it till then, that's ideal in my book, from a psychological perspective.
Okay, so high school for social, online connected content.
Right.
So does that mean get them a flip phone? Like what? Like help me.
Yeah,
practically.
I have 3 flip phones. I'm holding on to them.
Yeah,
I'm
what's
like
what does this look like in the real world as a parent in the 21st century, in 2023, 24, 25?
Can't be a flip phone. You've got to be able to get your kid introduced into society. I've had so many different conversations. My daughter, who is a sophomore, she has a 4.9 GPA. She's first in her class, and she's top of soccer. Not one college will ever see her if I don't let her go online and present, here's who I am in this world. She technically doesn't exist unless I do that. So the good and the bad of that is, you know, will she be able to go to college? Sure. Right? Is she going to be able to go to the college she wants?
Should she go to college is a different question.
Right, that's
For
totally
a different show.
question.
We've got plenty of great episodes.
Yeah,
exactly.
Oh yeah, I know. I watched them. I was like, oh my gosh, yes. But it's, you know, I think that you have to look at it. Am I using it as a tool or am I using it as entertainment? And so I would never. My daughter's 15, 5'10", never has worn a drop of makeup in her life. It's a beautiful girl. I think the minute she went on Instagram, that would all change. Right? I see it. I see her friends and her peers change. They're doing things different to themselves. They're dressing differently. They're doing all these things. Whereas I've had conversations about, like, you know, what is it that you're putting out to the world? Why is it? Are you paying attention to these things? So I don't have anything obviously against makeup. I don't have anything against those things. But from a normative standpoint, who are you doing that for? And if you're doing that all to put onto a platform so that the world can see you, to get feedback, to feel good about yourself, is that external or is it internal self-concept and self-worth? And I really, really think that that's, as parents, we have to focus on. Our children need internal self-worth. They need to know that they're enough without the rest of the world having to weigh in.
If you like this clip, we've got more where that came from. Be sure to watch the full video, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our new videos as they come out each week.